Okay. Everybody's had a chance to look over these different cities that staff has brought to us. So let's get the questions rolling. Let's figure out what we're going to do here. So I will start. Whoever wants to open this up, let's start looking at some of this now. So if I see any hands.
Yeah, so if you could just, there might be parts of all of them that you like. And so I just want to highlight ones that we might want to incorporate, or it doesn't necessarily have to be this, but maybe that you like the idea that it's doing, like what might not be exactly meet ours, but it would be the idea. And
Okay.
So yeah, if people can just, I got my highlighter, I got these in front of me, and we can just talk.
All right, great. Joel?
All right, so kind of going through them, I noticed that there's seemed to be kind of like two different styles here. One was where they made pretty much everything was nothing but advisory, and they put that in their general broad statements. I even went and looked, contacted Sandy, I contacted Gresham and spoke with them and talked to them about their ordinances, looked at a couple different other cities as well. And it between all of them, what she had in there and what everybody else has said, it's either that way or it's all advisory, or they identified like, for example, let's see, which one was it? Dig through my notes here. There's two of them in here. I noticed that basically followed a consistent pattern of, they probably did the same thing we do, where we kind of look at other cities and then pull from them. And I'm trying to dig up to it, so bear with me for 1 second here, because I got a lot of stuff open. It was the city of, I want to say it's Gladstone was one of them, and I think there was another one like Happy Valley or something. They kind of both had the exact same one. That sounded right to you. The ones you wrote on. And what they did there is they actually identified in their code the different styles of each type of committee that could be there. And then when I looked further into those particular styles of committees, they were like anything that was not just an advisory committee or actually had any sort of action to do anything was very particularly talking about, it was very particular in what they could do. And it was always identified as regulated by council protocols or something along those lines, where basically it was outlined, identified what they could and couldn't do, and it was limited. So, and that's something that that I noticed. Basically, it was pretty. Westland was the other one, yeah. So, and the three on there, which I really liked the descriptions of, because like I said, it was very clear. And if you guys haven't realized anything yet, I'm about really being really clear in our ordinances. It defined the three different ones, and I'm trying to get down to that part of the stuff here. Oh my goodness, there's so much on here. If someone else has it before me, by all means, please let me know, and I'll shut up and let someone else read it.
Well, Katie? So are you saying it was okay? Go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that there were two cities like that. He's right, Gladstone, which is page 39 of our packet. And then the other one was, I believe, the very first example, which was Milwaukee, was they also did the same thing where they specified the different types of groups. I believe that was the first. But yeah, page 39 of our thing is doing that. But I do want to point out, someone has a smoke detector that has a dying battery. If you don't mind just removing that from the wall so that you can silence it, I'd really appreciate it. It's been driving me nuts. Thank you.
I heard that too. I was wondering where that was going to run.
So do you guys like that? Is that what you're saying? I just want to like that, like the definition of board, commission, and committee.
Yeah.
Joel?
I like the very specific definitions of what they are in there, but also to caveat to that was being very particular. Anything that's not an advisory committee, be very particular about what those limitations and enacted rules are for anyone that has, like, for the planning commission, for example, they're allowed to approve a
Can you, Joel, can you put, I want to highlight where you're looking at. Can you?
Well,
let me know
this is,
where-
I'm using our own ordinance as a description of what I'm talking
Oh.
about here. So in our planning commission, we have it very, very specifically spelled out what they can and can't do with approving and extending a permit for temporary, like for the RV parks and things that can stay there longer, an extension on that period of time, the limitation we have. I'm trying to think of the exact wording we have in there, but it's very
Yeah.
particular about what they can and can't do. And so I like how that is, because that basically says, hey, we as a council have looked at this. We've made sure that we've given them restrictions based on what that we've approved, and that they're going to fit in that area, but they are allowed to enact that so that we're not approving everything that comes through for a temporary permit. So, and I noticed that a lot of the other ordinances had that when they were enacted powers, they just had very defining rules and guidance on what they could do and could not do.
So the planning commission and the budget committee are the two committees that are by state law. So those we can't fool with a lot, but we could add, like Joel said, we added that one thing because we didn't want it to come to us. So we said the planning commission is going to see that. So yeah, the budget committee and planning commission are kind of guided by ORSs.
Okay.
So to do that further, I need to get that. What does the council, if it's not in there, what do you want to add as under which committee? So I know exactly what we're writing in there.
Katie?
Not exactly answering your question, Denise, but something
That's okay.
something I would personally love to see added to really all of our committees or commissions or boards that we have would be something that I saw in a lot of the other codes. And I don't know if it exists in our code, so tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm looking right now at Milwaukee ethics law. Board, commission, and committee members appointed by the mayor with the consent of council are considered public officials. As such, they are expected to abide by the Oregon government ethics law of the state of Oregon, ORS 244.010 to 244.400. I would like to see that language added to all of our boards, committees, and commissions, just because I really think that we as a city need to make sure that everybody's on the same page, that if they are serving as a member of one of these boards or commissions, that they have to follow the exact same ethics laws that counselors are subject to. So I know that didn't answer your question, but that is something that we know in all of these other ordinances that I would really like to see added to our own.
Yeah, on talking about Milwaukee's, which was the one I was looking at, was I also like under their organization and operation, how it groups, it kind of gives them their laws all together before it breaks it out. So like a lot of the places we say that they will adopt their own bylaws, and this says the bylaws, can the city adopts the bylaws for that committee, and then they can update annually. But they're reviewed and accepted by the council. So I think like all committees should have bylaws, and they should be approved by the council once they have them. And we really don't have that. We say they get to do their own bylaws, but we have no way of overseeing. And then also the authority to bind, that's always been kind of presumed, but this makes it official that committees and commissions and boards they can't bind the city to any financial obligations, or they can't even enter into contracts. They need to do that through the city, in the way all the city contracts have to be awarded. And then annual reports and minutes, we kind of do that. We say that there was somewhere in one of these, in B, the annual work plan. So here they have the committees, I couldn't find in the one I was looking for, but one of these places, we always have our committees December 31st as the end of their term. And one of these cities has it March, like February 28th or 29th. It's like, or maybe it's March 31st. And the reason they do that is because the council sets their goals in that first quarter of each year, like we do. And then they're appointing the new members to be effective April 1st. And then those members in turn, they sit down in their first meeting in April and do a work plan that is presented to the council for approval. And this work plan would consist of what their goals as a committee was in that year, events that they may be doing. And that way the council has a heads up on what each of these committees is doing. You know, as a committee gets older, they become more trusted or something. I guess I mean, because like the Arts Commission, you know, they go out and they do a lot of things that technically they probably shouldn't do on their own. Like they go out and they raise money for their events and then they spend that money for their events. They do go through the proper procedures. Like when they give it to staff, we've told them if you go over this amount, you have to have 3 quotes. They've been following that. So the only way the council approves this funding is every year in our budget, there's a line that says committee, commissions, and boards, revenue and expenditures. And that's where you guys approve that funding. So you aren't approving every single contract, or because the city manager can enter into contracts to a certain extent. And we really don't have a committee that has a big enough event that, you know, we're entering into a contract for $50,000 with someone or something like that. You know, they're pretty small. So I just kind of want you to be aware, but I know the Arts Commission does a monthly financial update at each of their meetings. So maybe that's something that we could give to the council. Not all committees spend money, like the infrastructure committee. They just meet. They don't spend money. Parks does occasionally. They'll have events now, and hopefully our parks department is getting bigger. And when we have this new facility, we'll have more city parks and recreational events, you know. But right now it's really Parks and Arts Commission are the ones that have events and raise money and spend money. So, and both of them do have a staff keeps track on an individual spreadsheet, the amount of money coming in, the amount of money going out, and who it's to. That would be easily something we could give to the council when they do their quarterly updates.
I like that. Katie?
But I'd like to have that authority to bind in here,
Yeah.
so they know that they can't enter into things without some type of approval. It might not be council approval, but it would be a staff approval.
Good.
I just wanted to clarify something really quick, Denise. The Downtown Estacada Commission, they're
Yeah, they do too. Right.
okay. Yeah, I see when I think in my head about a committee that is planning their own events and spending their own money and not really coming to the council with any kind of approval of anything.
Right.
In my head, I think about the Downtown Estacada Commission.
Yeah,
so,
DEC does too.
okay.
Should have written everything down.
I'm in agreement on that with getting that authority or approval to bind in there. I noticed that a lot of the cities had similar language in there, that the approval to bind wasn't just on spending money, but also on sponsorships to have the city's name associated with an event as well too. To me, that seemed like a good idea as well. Something I was kind of shocked at as I went through this was I focused on a lot of the advisory committees, and a lot of them, the Parks and Rec were advisory committees, and they are all charged with similar things, to have some sort of event or to promote the Parks and Recs in the city, and then to come up with leisure activities and things like that to approve or to support the parks as well too, and support the city. But even they were to come to the city with their events as well too. So I was kind of surprised at that. And it seems like that's something that we should be doing here too.
That's why I like that annual work plan. Sure, they might think of an event halfway through that they might want to add, but that would be easy to take to the council. Where if we had them approve their annual work plan, the council would be seeing what they plan on doing.
And their annual work plan, when they turn it in, could have something like a fun run or something like that in October, and they turn that in at the beginning of the year, and we know that's coming up. They don't have to remind us of that or anything. Yeah, I think that sounds great.
Yeah, Joel?
So one of the cities that I contacted was City of Sandy. I figured preferable size, and they have some things on there. I kind of like some of the things that they had. And if you don't mind, I'd like to share this with everybody here. Let's see, I think that's the right one. You guys able to see it says City of Sandy on here?
Yeah, see, that's a little note. I looked in their ordinance. They don't have anything in their ordinances for communities.
Yeah, I had to
and-
call them and ask them. I had to talk to them
Yeah.
about it and talk to one of their people. They
Yeah.
transferred me on a few times. Finally found the person that was able to explain it to me. This right here is actually how they run their standard procedures for city boards. They have a single document that kind of guides the guidelines from the council that they'd like to see as like an overall kind of encompassing documents for the framework of it. And then the second thing they had was I think this is it. They had like a board and commission code of conduct type of thing as well. I really like how they did this because what they did is they went through and they identified particular portions of it. And then we can write something like this into our ordinances if we, you know, along these lines, as well as having a document for them that's either ratified by the like a resolution or something that we put out from the council to guide this, or if we put it into our ordinances, whatever we think is best. But it talks about a lot of key things that they like to structure all of their committees on, kind of like that kind of hits everything, and then they fine tune the committees from there with as you get into each one.
Yep.
It talks about the bylaws, public meetings. The one thing I really liked that they had at the very bottom here was this chart. Yeah, it basically kind of give a good breakdown. I don't know how big that is for you guys to see it or not.
Yeah, we can see
Yeah,
it. I can see it.
Yeah, and it's on their website, so you guys can go pull it up. It's under their boards and commissions at the very bottom. But it talks about the intended duration, membership, and it kind of gives a nice breakdown of each of those, kind of a quick look as well. I think that's something we should do for our committees on top of that as well, because it really kind of gives us a good overview of it, and we can kind of see what their purpose is, you know, what it's established through, recommendations are made to, who they're actually made to, and what they're for. And it kind of breaks down what the different kinds are, like statutory, advisory, task force, and so on. So I just really like how they kind of broke that down and put that out there. So
Okay.
So if you'll email that to me, I know I could go get it, but it might be easier. If you
yeah,
could just
I'll
email
get it
it.
over to you.
Okay, thank
So.
you.
Okay. Pull us off that screen, please.
Yep, I'm looking for the button. There it is.
All right, great. I want to hear from some Charity. What do you think?
Actually, that visual that Counselor Lickey showed at the bottom there was a nice, easy visual. I think that would be something that I would like to see added. Just an easy visual for somebody, you know, one of the community members to pull up and go, oh, okay, serve 2 terms. It's a board, it's a commission or a committee. I like that. I also liked Counselor Dunsmuir's point about including the ethics portion. I think that's really important. And I like the language that the city of Milwaukee used. And so I'm glad we're discussing this now, because as the city of Estacada grows, we're going to have to kind of start. I mean, it's good that we're thinking about these things now, because it's like you said, Denise, for so many years, you know, people have trusted these committees, not that they're not trustworthy, but, you know, we're getting new people into the community. And so, you know, you want to have clear guidelines outlined for people. And so I think this is, you know, a step in the right direction. Not that we're doing anything wrong or bad now, but as the community grows, we'll just have to implement some changes and make things a little bit more clear and concise. So this is, I like Milwaukee's language on what a committee, commission, all that. So, yeah.
Thank you, Charity. Katie.
Something that keeps going through my head as we keep talking about essentially how much more responsibility we as a council want to take on when when overseeing the amount of groups that we have. The thing that continues to go through my head that I want everyone to keep in mind of is that, you know, a lot of these bigger cities that we're looking at their ordinances and what they do to oversee their boards and stuff, a lot of these counselors and mayors are actually given a stipend. They're not given necessarily a salary or a wage, but they are actually paid a stipend. We are still 100% volunteer, and the more responsibility we essentially take away from some of the committees that, you know, maybe they've got some level of responsibility now, and we're looking to shift some of that responsibility away from the committees themselves and bring it over to the council. I just wonder how much that's going to actually affect our workload as a council that only meets twice a month. And, you know, our meetings already go so long sometimes. And I'm just kind of wondering how much of a workload we're going to be taking on for, you know, 100% volunteer positions. I mean, and these other people who are serving on the committees and the boards and commissions are volunteers as well. So I want everyone to kind of keep in mind as we're looking through the examples from other larger cities that these counselors and mayors are receiving some form of a stipend that us being in a smaller city are not receiving. So they might have a different way of doing things in their city council, you know, just because they've got more city support, you know, more staff support. Again, they're larger cities. And I just want everyone to keep that in mind, that we are still Clackamas County's smallest city, and us taking on a lot of responsibilities that right now we kind of give that level of responsibility to the other commissions and committees might not be beneficial to this board. And if it's not beneficial to this board, it might not end up being beneficial to the city of Estacada. I just want everyone to keep that in mind as we keep talking about how much responsibility to shift in other places. That's all I really wanted to bring up as a point for people.
Okay.
Yeah,
Jerry.
and-
I was going to focus on
Okay.
Jerry here because I know you were really passionate when we talked last time about groups, you know, as far as action and purpose and stuff. So do you have anything you want to add into this at all?
No, I don't have a huge issue with the stuff that's been brought up so far.
Okay.
I'm kind of just, I don't feel that we necessarily need to make a change right now. I feel that our commissions and committees have worked amazingly over the last however many years this has been in place, and I don't feel that a change is necessary. So, but honestly, I haven't had an issue with with anything that's been brought up so far. Not a huge issue. A lot of some of the stuff that has been brought up by Paul and Katie, and even something by Joel, I liked about the other cities. But I honestly, you know, at this point, I don't feel like we need a change. I think everything that we're doing is working amazingly. So I don't feel that this is, you know, an issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I agree. I don't look at this as really changing something, but I think it is defining, putting down on paper what we have been doing all along. And I think it will make it easier for staff in the long run if we get this down on paper, because we really aren't putting any more restrictions on the committees by putting this on paper because we were expecting them. The thing is, so if everyone is kind of looking at this and agreeing that we want to make some definitions to define, we want the chart, because I think that's a great idea too, to show what kind of committee you are.
Yeah.
And then kind of a section that all committees would follow, such as Robert's rules, and you can't bind the city into something, and the ethics, you know, all of that. So we're all the cities, and then you break it out into your different committee and commissions and boards, or whatever we decide we're going to have, and do those what their duties are. So rather than spend time here, if anyone has like something that's not in here or something they don't like that's in here, if you could just email it to me, and that way when I'm developing this, I can add those, and I can, you know, what I'll be doing is you guys will get a marked up one that shows what it was and what we're proposing to change. And we can look at all those changes at the next meeting and then, you know, get this approved. But right now we have it all in different chapters. And I think it's the way some of these, especially the first three that have them all together and then break out the individuals together. I think it's more clear.
Yeah.
For everybody
agree.
involved. And
I
don't think any of the committees, they're also great people that are going to have a plan with doing a work plan and giving it to the council, because a good committee is going to do that anyway. And most of our committees do that. They do sit down and say, what are we going to do this year? I was wondering if anyone liked, though, the starting of the committees being April 1st instead of December 31st. And so that way the council has set their goals. So if the committee is working on something that the council set, they can include that in their goals. And then we would expect them in May to turn in their goals to us. Katie?
Yeah, that sounds good. Katie?
After the last 2 years, all I ask is that if we're going to put something in place where the committees come to us at the beginning of the year with a list of plans of what they want to do in the next year, I would like to see some room for flexibility, just like, you know, I'm just thinking back to 2019, and if the park, you know, if the Parks and Rec had come to us and said, you know, at the beginning of 2019, we want to do all of these things, and or I'm sorry, 2020 in my head, 2020, if they'd come to us and said we want to do all these things, but then COVID hits, I would really like to see, you know, some sort of a process that would exist then for the Parks and Rec committee to come back to the council like in June and say, hey, so we had planned on doing this event, you know, for Halloween. Because of circumstances, we're going to have to change it to be this event, you know, or, you know, whatever scenario could come up. I just want to see some room for flexibility, and not just say, yeah, when you come to the council at the beginning of the year and these are your ideas, those are your only ideas for the whole year.
No.
That takes away some level of creativity. And I would really like to see our ordinance leave some room for flexibility. So that's my only request when you're drafting those proposal ordinances.
Okay,
And
Jerry?
One thing that I'd like to see changed in this whole process is, you know, I do like the April 1st, you know, the end of March deadline, because then the new council, on the years that new councilors come in, the new councilors have that, you know, that couple of months to get to get their feet wet, to get, you know, at least familiarized a little bit with the processes. So I do like that, because that gives those new counselors time. But the one change I would like to see in this whole process is, I would like to see it be uniform all across the boards for all commissions and committees to be appointed by council. It's a little weird how some committees and commissions are appointed by the mayor with council consensus, but I think it should be all across the board appointed by council.
Okay.
So,
Joel?
Okay. So a couple things. One, I kind of agreed with something with Katie. It said a little bit of flexibility. But I think as long as the key thing we focus on there would be to, long as they're communicating with the council and having, if there's going to be a change before a change is made, is that's basically we focus on that for that flexibility. But I think it's good because things change throughout the year. Nothing ever goes fully as planned. But as long as they're communicating with the council for changes, I think is the important piece. And then along the lines of something that Jerry had said, like I said, I looked through everything you had submitted, and I went through and looked at about another maybe 5 or 10 cities roughly somewhere, and there's a big bunch of them: Gresham, Charlotte, Wood Village, Boring, Sandy. I just kind of went through a big list I could find, and I noticed that it's actually very consistent that some are appointed by the mayor and some are appointed by the mayor with council consent. Nothing is at all that I saw on there was specifically just appointed by the council. And some of those are because some of those committees, like for example, if you look at the one that I showed earlier, well, I guess I'm not going to share it again, but there's a particular one on, like, for example, project advisory committees are specifically for like the city manager, task force and things like that, specifically to work with like the mayor. And there's certain reasons why some committees and committees are meant to be appointed by because they're more likely to be working with that person or to be helping that person to guide something. So I think it's a case by case basis, but I think keeping it appointed by the mayor and then allowing it to be with approval on some of them by the council and some of them just directly appointed by the mayor makes sense based upon what they are. And I think as we look further into those breakdowns, it'll make more sense. Like I really recommend everybody looks at that breakdown that they had from Sandy, because they did such a good job explaining what each one was there for. And if we adopt that, it would make more sense. So that's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah. And some of them, like the budget committee, has to be adopted by the council. You can't, because it's state law. planning commission, library board, some of those, you know, they're mandated to be council, but I'll write something up and we can discuss it when we get to those changes. And I want to we still will have those quarterly meetings, but tonight you're going to hear quarterly from them. And now that they're going to have a work plan, that quarterly meeting will be them coming to you, telling them what they've achieved on doing on their work plan, if they want to make changes and that type of thing. I can see it really being a more useful time with them if they have something that they really are going to report on and say how things are going.
Okay, great. Are there any more questions for Denise and staff? No? Everybody's comfortable? Okay. We thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I think you've got directions. So we've got maybe a couple minutes before